Welcome to the night before your comparative government AP exam, hosted by yours truly, Julie Purple, Natalie Orange, and Pilar Blue. Tonight's / very early this morning's video will be about Mexico, focusing less on drug cartels, mariachi bands, and tacos, and more on the rich culture of a political and historically fascinating country.
Throughout this video, there will be several pauses for coffee refills, snacks, and short naps.
So let's dive right in. We can basically break down Mexico's recent history into 3 sections: colonialism, chaos, and democracy. But first, it's important to quickly talk about some of the outside factors that play into the way Mexico has developed.
Mexico is a vast country with a wide variety of landscapes, including rainforests, fertile plains, coastal plains, mountains, and deserts. Man, that was a mouthful. These geographical dispositions have had a deep impact on Mexico's development.
The mountains and deserts have caused regionalism because they make it difficult to communicate or transport goods and ideas. Therefore, getting some actual consensus is very hard. It has led to some problems like the Zapatista rebellion, but we'll deal with that later. Wait, do we actually talk about that later?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Rugged terrain also causes regions not to be able to produce as many goods and therefore leads to disproportionate amounts of production.
Additionally, there's a large amount of oil, silver, and other natural resources that have brought wealth to the country, but they haven't made a difference in the lives of everyday Mexican people due to government misspending. A great example is oil.
Wait, wasn't it controlled by foreign investors?
Yeah, it was, but eventually it was nationalized and turned into Pemex, and it actually led to Mexico becoming a rentier state, meaning that they depended on one resource for their entire wealth, and that made the economy very fragile.
Wow.
During the colonial era of 1519 to 1821, the Spanish conquistadores influenced Mexico's history in a variety of ways. For one, they established a social hierarchy that put native Spaniards at the top, mestizos in the middle, and Amerindians, the native peoples, at the bottom.
This has bled through significantly throughout history, but we'll get to that later, right? We do?
I hope so. The Spanish rule also brought Catholicism to Mexico, which has stood the test of time and is still very present in modern Mexico, most notably with Our Lady of Guadalupe. The last thing we'll talk about that came about as a result of colonialism is an economic dependence on Spain. While they are no longer under the umbrella of Spain anymore, Mexico still tends to rely heavily on other nations. Like the United States. Now pause this video and take your first break to refuel those study essentials.
And we're back. Now we're going to dive into the next phase of Mexican history, chaos. To put it frankly, it was a mess.
From the years 1883 to 1876, give or take, Mexico was characterized by little else other than unpredictability. To name a few things, they had an incredible political instability. They once had 6 presidents in 3 years. And they also lost half of their territory. Texas, California, New Mexico, Utah, Arizona. And this was all a result of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. But it was all, well, fixed when President Porfirio Diaz promised to only serve one short 34-year term. His reign brought along stability and economic growth, but along with it came a steady but sure gap between the rich and the poor.
In 1910, Diaz's reign ended, and it just led to one thing: more chaos. But after the chaos ended, we have some lasting impacts. The patron-client system, a new constitution which included all 3 branches, protection from foreign governments, conflicts with Catholic Church, redistribution of land, nationalization of industries, also known as parastatal industries, and unionization of peasants.
And now, an open letter to the patron-client system. Patron-client system. Why do you exist? You're really corrupt and lead to inefficiency. I get why you were around during the chaos period when Pancho Villa and the Zapatistas and all them were fighting for the peasants, and when people were killing each other, and when it was a way to show loyalty and protect people. But now, really, you're just perpetuating corruption. Yours truly, Julie Purple.
Natalie has the right idea. Time for another short study break. Oh God, welcome to the night before your, welcome to the hour before your comparative government AP exam, hosted by yours truly, Julie Purple, Natalie Orange, and Pilar Blue. We left off at, the end of the period of chaos, so, let's pick back up with the start of democracy. Yeah, quickly.
Right, so as we mentioned, in 1917, the well-named Constitution of 1917 was ratified. It included promises of political, social, and economic reform that so many Mexicans were hoping for. But it didn't fix all of Mexico's social problems.
Right, there's still a strong north versus south divide, with the south being poorer and less developed, which was perpetrated by the coinciding cleavage of Mestiza versus Armenians. Armenians tend to live in the south, be poorer, and they tend to be marginalized and largely ignored by the government, particularly the PRI, which crushed the Zapatista Rebellion, which was organized by indigenous people who were protesting their land being opened for exploitation after the NAFTA agreement, which was, by the way, in power for pretty much all of history. That means that the same political party has been in control of Mexico for everything but for like 8 years. Terrible.
Although the PRI party prides itself in being supported by mostly older, poorer, and more rural voters, they still manage to neglect the Amerindians due to the fact that they are led by elites. The PRI was in power until the turn of the century, until the 2000 election of Vicente Fox, a member of the PAN party, which is supported by wealthier, more educated, more right-leaning constituents. He was followed by Felipe Calderon, another member of PAN, and then dethroned by Enrique Peña Nieto, a member of the PRI party.
Let's not forget about the, what's it called?
The PRD party.
Oh, right. Which is to the left of the PRI, and it appeals to the young and the educated.
This doesn't mean that they weren't able to set up a functioning government. The 1917 Constitution set up a federal democracy with all three branches, executive, legislative, and judicial. It is pretty much like the United States, except for a few differences.
In the executive branch, the president is the head of state and government. He is directly elected in the first-past-the-post election with a simple majority and can serve one 6-year term, which is also known as a sextino. He has basically all the same powers as American presidents, but he has fewer checks on him, which leads to more power over time. The Mexican president, for example, can dismiss a governor, while the U.S. president cannot.
Along with the president is the bureaucracy, which employs around, 1.5 million people. It is largely patron-driven. In addition to the huge bureaucracy, there are also parastatal industries, which are private industries that are appointed by the government to be in charge of a certain area. Most notably, as we mentioned earlier, Pemex, the oil company. However, with the decline of the PRI, there has also been a decline of parastatals.
The legislative branch is bicameral, with the Senate having 128 members, 3 from each state and 1 from the capital, while the House of Deputies has 500 members, with the state representation depending on state population. Some new reforms have recently been made to elections. For example, limits on how many seats a party can hold, which has helped enhance democracy because, the PRI has just been in charge forever. A gender quota on ballots to increase diversity and representation, and there are no consecutive terms.
You may have noticed that no one has consecutive terms. This is to prevent authoritarianism. So we don't have anyone like Diaz have a nice 34-year term.
In the judiciary branch, there are state courts, which have no real role, federal courts, and the Supreme Court, which technically has judicial review, but usually justices don't disagree with the president. This is a sort of expression of loyalty to the president because although judges are appointed for life, just like in the United States, most resign after their appointer's term is up. Because of this, most judges are perceived as corrupt.
However, there have been some positive strides in the judicial branch. In 2008, oral trials were introduced, replacing written trials.
Wait, what are we studying again?
CompGov. What test is now?
Wait, what about physics?
That was last week.
Oh, damn it.
Tune in next time in 5 hours when we study for AP Stat.
Oh, wait, Pilar, don't you need to get to that?
Yeah, I'm just gonna